Hello and welcome to Richmond Kickers Weekly. My name is Daryl Grove and I'm joined by a man who I don't think will be supporting a team in the USL League One playoffs. His name is Taylor Rockwell.
I mean, I'll be supporting Forward Madison because I enjoyed meeting their fans and enjoyed watching them play. I take your point, though, that I will probably not be supporting the Richmond Kickers in the playoffs since it seems very unlikely, if not mathematically impossible, that they will be in the playoffs.
So mathematically,
it's
still possible numerically, but it's just so unlikely, right?
Yes.
It's so unlikely 4 games left that the Kickers will overtake, 4 other teams to make the top 4.
It's unlikely because that requires everybody else to lose games and drop points, but it's also still looking
at it. It's a cease operation. Have no more.
Yes.
We need a bunch of teams to fold.
Really, really fast, but it's also unlikely because it still is incumbent upon the Kickers to pick up 4 wins in a row, which is not a thing I think they're capable of doing.
It's not what has happened recently.
No.
Yeah. So we are here to review the Richmond Kickers 0, Forward Madison 1. This was this past Saturday's game at City Stadium. What minute did Madison score? Because it was early.
If it was either the 5th or very early into the 6th.
It was the 6th.
There we go.
According to the official.
I think they get the ball back in the 5th. They score in the 6th.
Oh, so I think the best thing we can do is maybe just break down this goal because it was the main bit of action in this game.
Yeah, that works for me.
All right. And I think, as you said to me, because you saw this before, you were there at the game, right? I wasn't. It starts with a Kickers counter-attack. It ends with a Forward Madison goal.
It does. Can I pause there to go back a little bit to say that we had David Bulow on last week, Richmond Kickers head coach. One of the things I wanted to ask him about, but we sort of ran out of time, was about the Kickers having problems early. Yeah. And I have been aware of that because I tend to get there right around kickoff. The first thing you do when you walk into City Stadium, if you're me, is you go to the beer tent and you get your beer tickets. Then you go to the beer truck where you get your beer.
Like a proper journalist.
Obviously. Then you go and watch the game. And multiple times this season I have followed that order and walked up, and it has been 1-0 against the Kickers. This was pretty much the case again. I walked up. I was with Pablo Mar and Adam Snavely and my wife, and I was sort of like, wait, hold on. It's 1-0? Like, what has happened here? Because once again, the Kickers concede early. And yes, it's a counter attack that does it.
Oh, okay. So it's a cross comes in from Madison. It's sort of headed away. And there's a challenge at the top of the box. Gallardo plays a very, very nice ball to Matt Bolduc. And the break is on, right? Bolduc carries it forward. It's one of the reasons we like seeing him play in that weird sort of left of central midfield role is he will just put the burners on and off he goes. And he makes some acceleration, makes some progress down the field. Plays, I believe, an outside of the foot pass into the feet of Dennis Chin. And I'm going to say Dennis Chin should have received this ball.
Yes.
Nothing wrong with the pass from Bolduc.
He's calling for the ball where it's played.
Chin is calling for the ball where it's played. And I think Chin forgets maybe that the opposition team are also trying to get the ball.
That could be. That's a generous way to put it.
So he really stands as if no one's going to challenge him and the ball's just going to come into him.
Yeah.
But forward defender Connor Tobin he's stepping hard.
Yeah. And I think this any number of sequences in this play could be kind of representative of the season. But here's another one where it's the Kickers have the opportunity to break. Forward have committed numbers forward. So now the Kickers are going the opposite way. On a fast break, Bolduc has that ball and really could have caused problems, plays it into Chin, and you can just see the kind of static nature of the Kickers' attack, that Chin is kind of standing there flat-footed waiting for the ball to get to him, which, if you want to be really critical on Dennis Chin, you could say is like laziness. He's not really sharp and ready to go. But you could also look around him and note that there are not many Kickers players around Dennis Chin, and he may also be thinking, well, I've got to hold this ball up and wait for other people to come.
He's going for strength, right? I think he's going for I'm going to command the space, not let anyone get around me, and the ball's going to come into my feet. But Tobin was just either faster or stronger and managed to get the other side of him, get to the ball first.
Yes, and so all of that is not very good from Dennis Chin, but I guess the point that I wanted to drive home was just the idea that the Richmond Kickers, they're breaking. There's an opportunity on commit numbers forward, and this was a routine thing for them that they did not commit numbers forward. They certainly did not commit numbers into the box. And here, when this turnover happens, I mean, Matt Bolduc has carried the ball 60 yards at this point. The Kickers' defense has moved up maybe 15 yards from where they were.
He did not move up as a unit at all, did they? And so as a result, when forward counter-attack, Kickers are kind of deep and all mixed up, and there's not really a good shape. And
and so they're stretched, they're wide open, and this happens like jumping ahead to later in the game. Like there were moments when the kickers did have like Dennis Chin drops in, the back line has stepped up a little bit, and there may be 30 yards between the center backs and Dennis Chin, the forward, and yet they're still stretched out because they've got bodies all the way on the touchline. The back three have spread, and again, it was a routine thing that when the kickers would turn the ball over, they hadn't stepped enough. They're a little bit too stretched. They're a little bit too wide open, and to your point here, they get punished for it.
So let's talk about what happens after Connor Tobin steps and wins. So there's a couple of really nice moments from forward from this point onward.
I know. I've already done the forward.
I avoided it.
Thank you for that.
So the ball eventually gets worked out to the left back, Christian Diaz, I believe his name is, and he plays one of the best passes I've seen in a long time.
Yes, he does. I keep like pausing these conversations. I apologize, but it's also worth noting that Christian Diaz is one who is committed forward for the forward throw. See, forward. How
about we go committed forward for Madison?
There we go. All right. I think I just know that they prefer to be called forward.
Yeah,
so I
but
keep
the
wanting to
word's
do that.
already in there.
Yeah, that's fine. Madison it is. But he tracked all the way back on that Bolduc counterattack, and then Diaz then gets forward and gets involved in the attack. You kind of contrast the kickers being slow to get forward, slow to commit numbers, versus Madison having a left back who is forward, then gets all the way back, then gets a forward again. Like, again, the contrasting styles. But yeah, Diaz gets that ball, and I think the kickers sort of seem to adopt an approach of, their left back has the ball on the touchline, he's about 40 yards from goal, we got this. And they do not got this.
They do not got this, because behind, I believe, Braden Troyer is Nunez, number 70. And Christian Diaz manages to thread a pass that takes out 4 kickers players. If we did the German packing stat, it would be +4.
Yep.
Takes out pass. 4 players to find the feet of Nunez, sort of at the diagonal top of the box. Really dangerous position for an attacker to have the ball.
It certainly is. And Nunez, to his credit, has sort of drifted interior, has gotten behind Braden Troyer, has done the very smart thing of got into good position, but then also not drawn attention to himself. I think it is a very good pass, and I think for the kickers, maybe they think, that's not on. There's no way that ball is coming. And then when it gets there, now the 2 different waves of defenders for the kickers have been taken out of the play with one pass. So it's a great pass, and it's great awareness from Nunez as well.
But there's still one more kicker's mistake to come.
Yes.
Because the eventual goal scorer, Danny Tenorio, he gets on the end of a Nunez cross, I guess you could call it, right? He sneaks behind Ivan Magales.
Yeah.
Is that about fair?
No, it is. It's just more so that sneaks implies he was subtle and crafty, and it's more of just I think he recognizes that Magales is watching the ball and just sort of drifts away from him. It's a little bit more okay, I guess I'll just walk over here now and you won't pay attention to me.
Magales knows he's marking Tenorio, right? He has him.
Yep.
But he's also watching the ball, worried about what's coming in. So I guess it's just then Tenorio smart enough to use the blind side to know that he's not looking over here. I'm going to run over here.
Yeah. And he does. And it's telling that even with that being the case, Tenorio kind of miscontrols the ball and has to take another couple touches to get himself into a position to shoot. From 6 yards out, he ends up just passing it past Akir Fitzgerald, the goalkeeper. But that shows you how much time he had and how far out of position Magales was, that he even turns and realizes this and tries to make a play. He extends the leg, maybe kind of hyperextends that knee a little bit.
It looked like he might have injured himself for a second.
But he's so far away from it that he, at a full stretch, still can't get near the ball and still doesn't even have the ability to close down and make a defensive play despite the miscontrol. And instead, it's in the back of the net.
I guess credit to Nunez for curving such an ungettable 2 ball.
Exactly. And from there, so Daryl, you were not there. I was in attendance, but you saw representative moments as we kind of skipped through this game so you could get an idea of what was happening.
On ESPN Plus, yeah.
And I will not say exactly what you said, but the kickers' kind of style at certain points in this game was not particularly energetic. It was not particularly motivated, in my opinion. It felt almost like they were the home team with a 1-0 lead, and they were kind of content to see it out. And Madison, for their part, were sitting off thinking, do you guys want to attack? Or there were just these long sequences of the kickers getting the ball around midfield, working back to Akir Fitzgerald, or forced back to Akir Fitzgerald. He plays a ball wide. There's a little bit more possession, and it goes back to Akir Fitzgerald. That happened on a number of occasions, but in the clip we watched right before we started recording, it was 3 in a row of going back to him, and it didn't seem like there was as much.
It was possession soccer at 1-0 down.
Exactly. But like defensive possession soccer, like strangely, and that's where I say again.
We're holding on to this 1-0 deficit.
Yes. We're going to do it, guys. We're going to keep that goal difference tight. Because even when the Kickers would get into good attacking positions or decent attacking positions, it still seemed like there was not a lot of fluidity to the attack. And in the end, it would be kind of balls into the box, like hopeful balls into the box or to the top of the box that maybe you get a Dennis Chin shot that's contested from a little bit of distance or a shot from farther out that the keeper spills, but then has time to get on the end of and cover because you're shooting from distance with nobody crashing the box. You just did not see the urgency from the Kickers that you absolutely saw from the Madison players.
And it's that lack of urgency that is going to mean no playoffs.
Correct.
So I have the actual standings in front of me. Kickers are 9th out of 10 teams, right? They have now played the same amount of games as more or less everybody. So like Toronto FC2 are ahead of the Kickers in 8th place by a point.
Yeah.
Right? And then FC Tucson, Chattanooga, South Georgia, all those teams are ahead of the Kickers before you even get to the playoff line. So even though it is mathematically possible with 28 points and then 36 points currently is what Madison are on in the final playoff spot and 4 games to go, so 12 points to be made up. It's not realistic to jump all those other teams.
No, it's absolutely not. And like instead of kind of discussing theoretical playoff possibilities that aren't going to come into reality, like I guess I want to ask you, because this is a thing that I think we have I've been playing around with in my head and haven't really articulated, but feel comfortable saying now, like, I am very surprised by the way things are. And I know that's like that's not that bold of a statement to say, like, I'm surprised that we're 9 out of 10. But for the Kickers to go down a level at the end of last season, I think I fully had the expectation that they would be near the top of the table, if not challenging for like the regular season title, for winning the Shield or something like that.
Yeah.
But I don't know, and I guess I'm going to ask you if that was maybe just me being like idealistic and like, oh, you know, they're dropping down, they're still going to have the talent, they have got the structure, all these kind of teams are coming up or don't exist, so they should be able to do it. And I'm wondering, like, was that an unfair perspective?
Yeah, well, I think actually the thing in hindsight is they dropped down a division, but then most of the players left.
True.
Right? So only so many players that were USL champion. I mean, we struggled in the championship, right? But only so many players that were in the USL championship. Like essentially Shanosky, Troya, Bolduc was with us at some point. Only so many of those guys came back. Right? So it's not as if we have a former championship team in League One. The team dropped down and then was rebuilt for League One.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I get that.
You know what I'm saying?
And that makes sense. But also, I didn't think a lot of the players from last season deserved to be back or were good enough to be back. And like
someone like Gallardo's an upgrade on players we had last season.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like there's been much more of a fan focus and players go over and, you know, talk to, like, sign autographs and talk to people after the game more than they did last season or the season before. Players go and celebrate with the Red Army. So all of that, like, I think is positive and shows that there's been more of a focus on, you know, bringing the crowd in, making people feel welcome and important. But it's still, like, I think it was just the overall structure and the fact the Kickers have been around for so long, they've got new ownership. It just seemed like you've got the kind of long history combined with the new ownership. To me, it felt like, okay, they're going to build on this. It's going to be a really exciting season. And I think for whatever reason, maybe it's just because Madison brought so many fans from Wisconsin, from North Carolina, from Florida. Somebody flew up from Florida. Like, it's just... I think it was a very eye-opening...
You're having some Forward Madison jealousy, is that what you're saying?
Yes, to be honest, but I think
I think a lot of teams are, because they're such a unique team. Like, the way that they've managed to embrace irony as their sort of, like, identity in a way that still feels serious, I think it's walking a very fine line, and the marketing people are very skillful at doing it. I also think it's not possible to replicate it, because then you'll just be like, Madison light. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think it is almost worth being jealous of them, because they're the one team that managed to pull this off. So when they announced the astonishingly shiny Cup of World Cups,
that was amazing
for the games against, I want to say Milwaukee, then like, no one else has ever done that before, right? And probably if someone else does it again, it will feel like a knockoff of what Forward are doing.
It will, but that's to some extent fan culture. And like I absolutely enjoyed meeting everybody I met that was supporting Forward on the weekend. But I guess I also mean that I think I had this idea that, like, again, long-standing team who kind of know how to operate, that gives you a leg up. Yeah. And for a team like Forward to come in, so many of these teams who did not exist.
Be non-existent and then be in fourth place.
And be causing problems for teams. It just was sort of a moment of like, this is, maybe things are not as good as I thought. Yeah. And it's just, it was an eye-opening moment. And I think that's why I am more kind of like defeated, more like frustrated by this result than I think I've been by most others, including games when the Kickers were absolutely blown out of the water.
I think it's good because even though mathematically it isn't, this feels like the end of any possible
that's probably it.
Positive end to the season.
Yes.
Right? The only very small positive we could take is that so 2 away games, away to Tucson this weekend, away to Chattanooga Red Wolves the weekend after. The final 2 games at home are against Toronto FC 2 and Orlando City B. It really feels like at this point those are the winnable games for the Kickers. So we could just build off of beating the other lower teams.
Yeah, is that building off though? Like,
it would be a few more points to end the season.
I think we had this conversation sort of off air,
but
to continue it, but that doesn't. That's almost like a fake narrative at that point because it's like, yeah, if you lose the next 2 away and then you win those 2 at home against the other 2 worst, or 2 of the 3 worst teams in the league. Like, I don't like the idea, like, oh, but we're building on it for next season. Like, that almost feels like a thing that people would try to do, and it's more of a, like, no. Like, there's nothing to be built on. This season has not been good enough, and the soccer has not been fun a lot of the time. So I do feel like things need to change to get it right next season, and I just don't want it to be packaged as but we did win those last 2, so things are moving in the right direction or anything like that. I would much prefer it to be, I want, like, this season has not been good enough, but it will be better next year, and that's what we're going to work towards.
Well, fingers crossed for next year.
Yeah.
The one group that sort of kept the faith and kept singing all throughout Saturday was the Red Army.
They certainly did.
So, as per usual, let's have the Red Army play us out.